And in the next couple of minutes, I would like to give you a summary about Plexus Analysis, which is a quite new, recently released member of the Plexus suite. And in the end, I would like to give you a bit more detail about the latest feature we added to our software. So, Plexus Analysis is one of those various data analysis tools which can help us a lot when we want to interpret or draw conclusions from all that huge amount of data which we generate in our everyday work, so that eventually we would be able to make better decisions and find the optimal choice, which often has to be based on dozens of parameters even. Analysis, as its name suggests as well, has visualization and analytics and statistical capabilities, and similarly to the other Plexus tools, it is entirely web-based. And also I would like to mention that thanks to the strong chemistry engine of ChemAxon, Plexus Analysis can be the most valuable for the chemical and the life science industries. And if we want to list its most important features, then we have to mention its integrability, also that it can be used for exploratory data analysis, where it can smoothly and dynamically handle high-dimensional and very large datasets, which can contain even millions of records. And since recently, it can be used for curve fitting and regression analysis as well. So if we want to go into the details, as I just mentioned, analysis can be integrated into complex workflows. For example, as a member of the Plexus family, it's already integrated with Plexus Connect in order to receive data from the company database. File upload like MRV, SDF, or SMILES files can be uploaded into the application as well. And thanks to its web services-based API, analysis can be integrated with other third-party applications as well. So, for example, to receive data from a company database. In this first demo video, I would like to show you the various ways how data can be sent into analysis. The first example is about the upload of a simple SD file, where the import is finished, the data will be visualized in a spreadsheet, and the analysis can be continued, for example, with visualizing the data in a chart. The second example will show us how the integration with Connect can be used. So the chemist can collect all that data, all the properties which he or she wants to use in the analysis. Queries can be run, data can be sorted if needed. And as a final step, all those properties which will be needed in the analysis have to be collected, and the data set sent into the analysis application. We also developed some shortcuts between Plexus Connect and Analysis in order to make the generation of simple charts like histograms and scatter plots easier. This means that with just one or two clicks, it is possible to visualize our data in basic charts and check their distribution and the relationship between our properties. Okay. So, as we've just seen, one of the most fundamental capabilities of Plexus Analysis is that it can visualize the distribution and the relationship of our data set. And this is a very important thing if someone wants to do exploratory data analysis, where the purpose of the analyst is to summarize the most important characteristics of the collected data set and to discover new patterns and relationships in the data. This kind of analysis often requires us to work with complex and very large data sets, and it has to be emphasized as well that exploratory analysis relies quite heavily on the various visualization techniques. So this was one of the reasons why, as a first step, we developed the support of different chart types into our application. And the chart types which we selected were the ones which are the most frequently used among the chemists as well, namely histograms to check the distribution of our variables and multidimensional scatter plots in order to search for correlations between our descriptors. The second video will give us more detail how these chart types can be used in Plexus Analysis. Again, we start with the upload of a file, but in this case, we are using a much larger file. It has 100,000 molecules with associated data. As a first step, we can create, for example, some histograms in order to check the distribution of some of the interesting properties we have. We can get additional information about the data from the tooltip of our histograms. And after that, we can create scatter plots as well in order to see whether we have some interesting relationship between our data set. Beside those basic XY charts, analysis can create more complex visualizations because the color, size, and shape of the scatter plot can be used as additional dimensions, so to say. And as we've just seen, we get the big picture with our scatter plot behind these 100,000 data points. But if we want to, we can just as easily zoom into our data set in order to search for interesting areas or interesting points within our scatter plot data. Or we can select either single points or rows or even entire areas or histogram bins if we want to. And this selection will be, of course, synchronized over the entire analysis. And finally, I would like to mention that beside this categorical coloring scheme of the first scatter plot, analysis supports gradient coloring as well in order to have a more convenient way to visualize continuous numerical properties as well. And finally, I would like to show you the latest addition to Plexus Analysis, which can be used now for curve fitting and regression analysis as well. On the one hand, it can be used for simple linear regression, where we either want to calculate the parameters of the best fitting straight line in order to make predictions, extrapolation, or interpolation, or we just simply want to check whether we have a linear correlation between two variables. And besides this linear regression, analysis can be used now for nonlinear curve fitting as well. As a first example of this, we added the so-called 4-parameter logistic function to the software. This function is most frequently used for receptor-ligand binding assays for the characterization of dose response datasets, because we can use it for fitting this well-known sigmoidal curve to our data points, and among the calculated parameters of the sigmoid, we can get, for example, the EC50 or the IC50 parameter of the dose response data as well. And the third, final video will show us how linear and nonlinear regression works in Plexus Analysis. So in the first example, if we want to check if we have linear relationship between our properties, then we can start by creating a scatter plot from them. And when we have those, we can fit a straight line by using the relevant context menu item. And then we will see whether we really have any kind of correlation, any kind of linear correlation in the data. Alternatively, if we are interested in the parameters of best fitting straight lines, so the slope and the intercept, in order to make further predictions to further values, then after we have fitted the linear trend line, we can use the tooltip of this line and get the slope and the intercept for there. And on the final example, we have a dose response data set where we want to calculate the EC50 parameter for it. So again, we start with creating the scatter plot, and after that, we change to logarithmic scale on the x-axis where we have the dose values. And finally, we calculate the best fitting sigmoidal curve by using the 4PL logistic function. And on the tooltip, we can see the EC50 value together with the R-squared parameter in the last row, which can tell us how good this selected model, this 4PL model, fits our data set. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I will be happy to answer your questions.
That there were data sets that had something to do with just chemistry in general. So in a chemical environment, you know, with formulations and products, not to do with anything to do with life sciences. So other applications outside of life science.
Of course, it is not limited to chemical data as well. We support chemical structures in the software, but it can be used for general numerical data just as much. Good.
I have a question. You very clearly showed the case of exploratory data analysis, where there are a lot of changes made. Is it possible to save a visualization, to show it to someone else, and share it with someone else so that they can pull it up with everything laid out the way it was already laid out, and maybe even the subsetting? That's helpful to communicate something that I discovered in doing that exploratory analysis.
At this point, what we have is the export of these charts as images. So PNG images can be created and downloaded. What we are working on right now is the export of the data. So as on the second video, I think there was the selection. So points and areas can be selected. And we are working on the exporting of this selected data set as well. So if we found anything interesting, this can be downloaded and shared with others.
Yeah, it'd be helpful to save the state.
Yes, we are also working on it to save the entire analysis as a document. And later on, we'll come to sharing as well.
I've got some comments and questions. First, a comment I would like to highlight that this is able to handle like millions of data points, while our Spotfire friends are freezing around a couple of tens of thousands. So this is really impressive. I would like to ask whether you consider the possibility to add your own regression definitions, or whether this is somehow static.
Yes, definitely. So this 4PL function was just the first example, because we saw that this can be a very good connection point to Plexus assay for the assay handling. But yes, nonlinear regression in general is already in the software, so adding further functions, exponential, logarithmic, and so on, should be relatively straightforward, I would say.
You might have shown it already, so how about substructure filtering and also similarity sorting ranking? And then after that would be R group decomposition, kind of chemistry-centric analysis.
Okay, first to the searching question. And we have the searching capability on our roadmap, definitely. What is possible right now to do this kind of searching in Plexus Connect and transfer the data, the query data into analysis. Later on, we would like to have these features in the analysis application itself. And R group decomposition, again, is something which we clearly want to have in our software. It is planned for the future.
Yeah, since you call it Connect, right? So when you talk about analysis or visualization, I think Spotfire still is king, right? So do you plan actually to establish some two-way connection between your software to the Spotfire, right? So some people can do this kind of analysis on the Spotfire, but some result you can actually feed back to your program.
As I mentioned in the beginning, so integration with other software is a doable thing. We didn't do this yet, but yeah, we are considering several options on that.